Last Tuesday morning, 67-year-old Margaret from Toledo thought she was making a simple, healthy breakfast. She took leftover rice from the fridge, the same rice she'd enjoyed for dinner the night before, popped it in the microwave for 2 minutes, and sat down to eat. By evening, she was in the emergency room with severe food poisoning, wondering how something so innocent could have gone so terribly wrong. You know what? Margaret's story isn't unique. In fact, it's happening to seniors across America every single day. And most of the time, we never connect the dots between that harmless, reheated meal and the stomach upset, nausea, or worse symptoms that follow hours later. Here's a statistic that might shock you. 48 million Americans get food poisoning every year. But if you're over 65, you're 5 times more likely to end up hospitalized from it. That's not because you're doing anything wrong. It's because your body processes food differently now. Your immune system works harder to fight off toxins, and many of the medications you might be taking can actually make food poisoning symptoms more severe. I'm here today because I believe you deserve to know the truth about what's happening in your kitchen. For the past 8 years, I've been dedicated to sharing practical, science-based health information specifically for people like you. People who've earned the right to enjoy their meals without worrying about accidentally poisoning themselves with their own microwave. Now, before we dive in, let me explain why microwaving certain foods becomes dangerous as we age. When you microwave food, you're not just heating it up, you're actually changing its molecular structure. Some foods, when reheated this way, can develop compounds that your body struggles to process. And here's the thing. When you were younger, your digestive system and immune system could handle these changes better. But now, your body needs you to be more careful, more intentional about how you handle food. There are also factors working against you that you might not even realize. Many common medications, blood pressure pills, heart medications, even some antacids, can slow down your digestion or change how your stomach processes certain compounds. This means foods that might give a younger person mild discomfort could land you in serious trouble. Today, I'm going to walk you through 5 specific foods that you absolutely must stop microwaving right now. These aren't exotic ingredients or complicated dishes. They're everyday foods sitting in your refrigerator that could be silently putting your health at risk every time you hit that reheat button. But don't worry, I'm not just going to scare you. For each dangerous food, I'll give you simple, practical alternatives that will keep you safe while still letting you enjoy the convenience you deserve. Mistake number 1, reheating leftover rice. Let me tell you more about Margaret's story, because what happened to her could happen to any of us. Margaret had made a beautiful rice pilaf for Sunday dinner. You know, the kind with vegetables and herbs, the type of dish that tastes even better the next day. She stored it properly in the refrigerator, just like she'd been doing for decades. The next morning, she scooped some into a bowl, microwaved it for 2 minutes until it was steaming hot, and ate it while reading her morning paper. Everything seemed fine until about 6 hours later. First came the nausea, then severe cramping, followed by vomiting that wouldn't stop. Margaret's daughter rushed her to the emergency room, where doctors quickly diagnosed her with what's called fried rice syndrome, a type of food poisoning specifically caused by reheated rice. Here's what Margaret didn't know, and what most of us don't realize. Rice contains spores of a bacteria called Bacillus cereus. These spores are like tiny, invisible seeds that can survive almost anything, including the high heat of cooking and even your microwave's radiation. When rice sits at room temperature, or even in your refrigerator, these spores wake up and start multiplying rapidly. Now, here's the scary part for those of us over 60. When you microwave that rice, you're not killing these bacteria. You're actually creating the perfect environment for them to produce toxins. The uneven heating that microwaves create means some parts of your rice might be scorching hot, while other parts remain just warm enough for bacteria to thrive. These toxins are what made Margaret so violently ill. But why are we more vulnerable than younger people? As we age, our stomach produces less acid, which is our first line of defense against harmful bacteria. Many of us also take medications like proton pump inhibitors for heartburn or acid reflux, medications that further reduce our stomach acid. This means we have less natural protection against these bacterial toxins. Additionally, if you're taking blood thinners, diabetes medications, or immune-suppressing drugs, your body's ability to fight off food poisoning is significantly compromised. What might give a 30-year-old an upset stomach could put you in the hospital for days. Margaret later told me she'd been reheating leftover rice the same way for 40 years without problems. Why now? She asked. The answer is simple. Your body has changed, and the risks that were always there have become dangerous for you now. The symptoms of rice poisoning can appear anywhere from 1 to 6 hours after eating, and they often mimic other health conditions we might already be dealing with: nausea, abdominal pain, cramping, and diarrhea. Many seniors dismiss these symptoms as medication side effects or normal aging discomfort, which means the poisoning goes untreated and can become more severe. Mistake number 2, microwaving leafy greens, spinach, lettuce. Now let me introduce you to Robert, a 72-year-old retired teacher from Phoenix who nearly learned this lesson the hard way. Robert was always health conscious. He made fresh spinach salads, steamed vegetables, and tried to eat his greens every day, just like his doctor recommended. One evening, he had leftover spinach from a restaurant meal, a lovely creamed spinach side dish that he couldn't finish. Being frugal and health-minded, he saved it for lunch the next day. The next afternoon, Robert heated that spinach in his microwave for about 90 seconds until it was nice and hot. Within 3 hours, he was experiencing dizziness, shortness of breath, and a rapid heartbeat that sent him straight to urgent care. The diagnosis? Nitrate poisoning, something he'd never even heard of before. Here's what Robert and most of us don't know about leafy greens. Vegetables like spinach, lettuce, arugula, and even celery naturally contain compounds called nitrates. In fresh vegetables, these nitrates are actually beneficial. They help lower blood pressure and improve circulation. But when you reheat these greens, especially in a microwave, something dangerous happens. The heat converts those harmless nitrates into nitrites, and then into compounds called nitrosamines. These nitrosamines are the same chemicals found in processed meats that we're warned about, and they're potentially carcinogenic. But the immediate danger for seniors is even more concerning. These converted compounds can interfere with your blood's ability to carry oxygen. For Robert, this was particularly dangerous because he was already taking blood pressure medication. Many seniors are on ACE inhibitors, beta blockers, or other heart medications that can amplify the effects of these converted nitrates. The combination created a perfect storm that left him struggling to breathe. Think about how often you might be doing this without realizing it. You make a nice salad for dinner, but can't finish it all. The next day, You add some warm chicken to those leftover greens and pop the whole thing in the microwave. Or maybe you buy those convenient pre-washed spinach bags. Use half for a cooked dish and then reheat the leftovers later in the week. Here's another scenario that happens all the time. You order a restaurant meal with a side of sautéed spinach or mixed greens. You take half home, and the next day you microwave it along with your leftover entree. Each time you're doing this, you're potentially creating those dangerous nitrosamine compounds. The symptoms of nitrate poisoning can be particularly frightening for seniors because they mimic serious heart problems, chest tightness, difficulty breathing, dizziness, and rapid heartbeat. Many of us already worry about heart issues, so these symptoms can trigger panic and anxiety on top of the physical effects. What makes this especially insidious is that we're told to eat more greens as we age. They're supposed to be the healthy choice, and they are when they're fresh. But reheating them transforms these nutritious vegetables into potential toxins that your aging body struggles to process safely. Mistake number 3, reheating eggs in any form. Let me tell you about Helen, a 69-year-old grandmother from Minnesota who discovered this danger during what should have been a pleasant Sunday brunch with her family. Helen had prepared a beautiful egg casserole the night before. You know the kind, with cheese, vegetables, and fluffy scrambled eggs all baked together. It was meant to make Sunday morning easier, and she planned to simply reheat individual portions as her family woke up. The next morning, Helen microwaved her portion for about 2 minutes until it was hot throughout. She enjoyed every bite and felt proud of her make-ahead planning. But within 4 hours, she was doubled over with severe abdominal cramping, nausea, and digestive distress that lasted for nearly 2 days. What Helen didn't realize is that eggs undergo a dangerous transformation when they're reheated, especially in a microwave. When eggs are cooked the first time, their proteins form a stable structure. But when you reheat them, these proteins break down again and can form compounds that are toxic to your digestive system. This process is called protein denaturation, and it creates substances that your body recognizes as foreign invaders. For seniors, this is particularly problematic because our digestive systems work differently now. The enzymes that break down proteins become less efficient as we age, which means these toxic compounds linger longer in our system. Many of us also take medications that slow down digestion. Things like pain medications, certain antidepressants, or drugs for overactive bladder, which means these harmful substances have even more time to cause damage. Here's what makes this especially tricky. We're not just talking about obvious leftover scrambled eggs. Think about all the ways eggs hide in your leftover foods. That quiche you made for book club and are reheating for lunch? Those are eggs. The egg salad sandwich filling you made yesterday and are warming up today? Eggs. Even that breakfast burrito from your favorite restaurant that you're microwaving for a quick meal. The scrambled eggs inside are becoming toxic the moment you hit the reheat button. Helen later realized she'd been experiencing mild digestive issues for months after reheating various egg dishes, but she'd attributed it to getting older or medication side effects. She never connected the dots until that severe episode with the casserole. Many seniors make this same mistake. We dismiss digestive discomfort as a normal part of aging when it might actually be food poisoning from reheated eggs. The situation becomes even more dangerous if you're taking medications that affect your stomach lining or digestive process. Blood thinners, NSAIDs for arthritis pain, or steroids for inflammation can all make your digestive system more vulnerable to these toxic compounds. What might cause mild discomfort in someone with a healthy gut could cause serious inflammation and pain in yours. There's also the issue of cholesterol oxidation. When eggs are reheated, especially multiple times or at high temperatures, the cholesterol in them can oxidize and form compounds that are particularly harmful to seniors who may already be managing heart disease or high cholesterol. These oxidized cholesterol compounds can contribute to arterial inflammation and plaque buildup, exactly what those of us over 60 are trying to avoid. Mistake number 4, microwaving processed meats. Frank's story really hits close to home for many of us. At 74, this retired mechanic from Alabama was living alone and trying to eat healthy on a budget. He'd buy deli turkey every week, the good kind, low sodium, freshly sliced, and make sandwiches for lunch. Sometimes he'd have leftover turkey that he'd heat up with some vegetables for a warm meal. He thought he was making smart, healthy choices. One Thursday afternoon, Frank heated up some of that deli turkey in his microwave, added it to some steamed broccoli, and sat down for what he thought was a nutritious lunch. By evening, he was experiencing chest pains, elevated blood pressure, and a headache so severe he called his neighbor to drive him to the emergency room. What Frank discovered that night changed how he thinks about processed meats forever. The doctor explained that when you microwave processed meats like deli turkey, ham, bacon, or hot dogs, you're creating a chemical reaction that can be especially dangerous for seniors with heart conditions. Here's the science that Frank wishes he'd known. Processed meats contain nitrates and nitrites as preservatives, compounds that keep the meat fresh and give it that appealing pink color. When you microwave these meats, the high heat breaks down these preservatives into nitrosamines, the same cancer-causing compounds I mentioned with the leafy greens. But there's an additional problem specific to processed meats. Microwaving also causes the cholesterol in these meats to oxidize rapidly. This oxidized cholesterol is particularly harmful to your cardiovascular system. It's more likely to stick to artery walls and contribute to plaque buildup than regular cholesterol. For seniors who may already be managing heart disease, high blood pressure, or high cholesterol, this is like adding fuel to a fire. Frank was taking blood pressure medication and a daily aspirin, which made him even more vulnerable to these effects. The combination of the nitrosamines and oxidized cholesterol caused his blood pressure to spike dangerously, creating those frightening chest pains that sent him to the ER. But here's what really opened Frank's eyes. He'd been doing this for years without realizing the cumulative damage. Think about how often you might reheat processed meats. You make a ham sandwich but only eat half, so you save the rest for later and warm it up. You buy a package of deli meat and use it throughout the week, sometimes adding it to hot dishes or soups. You might even reheat pizza with pepperoni or sausage, not realizing that you're transforming those processed meat toppings into toxic compounds. The symptoms Frank experienced, headaches, elevated blood pressure, chest discomfort, are often dismissed by seniors as normal signs of aging or medication side effects. Many of us are already monitoring our blood pressure or taking heart medications, so we might not connect these symptoms to that reheated lunch meat we had a few hours earlier. What makes this particularly insidious is that processed meats are often marketed as convenient, senior-friendly options. They're easy to chew, require no cooking, and seem like a good source of protein. Deli counters even advertise heart-healthy, low-sodium options that seem perfect for seniors managing their health. But the moment you reheat these meats, you're undoing any health benefits and potentially creating serious risks. Frank also learned that the medications many seniors take can amplify these dangers. Blood thinners can make you more susceptible to the cardiovascular effects of oxidized cholesterol. Diabetes medications can interact poorly with the chemical compounds created during reheating. Even common supplements like fish oil or vitamin E can increase your sensitivity to these toxic reactions. Mistake number 5, reheating mushrooms. Dorothy's experience with reheated mushrooms taught her a lesson she'll never forget. This 71-year-old retired librarian from Oregon loved cooking and often made elaborate meals for herself, even though she lived alone. One of her favorite dishes was a creamy mushroom risotto that she'd perfected over the years. She'd make a big batch on Sunday and enjoy it throughout the week, reheating portions in her microwave whenever she wanted a comforting meal. Last month, Dorothy reheated a bowl of her day-old mushroom risotto, warming it thoroughly in the microwave for about 3 minutes. The dish tasted just as delicious as always, and she settled in to watch her evening programs. But within 2 hours, she was experiencing severe stomach cramping, bloating, and digestive distress that kept her up most of the night. What Dorothy didn't know is that mushrooms have a unique protein structure that becomes problematic when reheated, especially for seniors. Unlike other vegetables, mushrooms contain complex proteins that break down rapidly once they're cooked. When you reheat mushrooms, these proteins undergo a secondary breakdown that creates compounds your digestive system struggles to process. Here's why this is particularly challenging for those of us over 60. As we age, our bodies produce fewer digestive enzymes, particularly the ones needed to break down complex proteins. This means that when you eat reheated mushrooms, these altered protein compounds can sit in your digestive system for hours, fermenting and causing gas, bloating, and cramping that can be quite severe. Many seniors also take medications that slow down digestion, things like calcium channel blockers for blood pressure, certain antidepressants, or pain medications. When your digestion is already slowed by medication, these problematic mushroom proteins have even more time to cause trouble in your system. Dorothy realized she'd been experiencing mild digestive issues after meals for weeks, but she'd attributed it to her arthritis medication or just getting older. She never connected it to her beloved mushroom dishes until that particularly severe episode. Many of us make this same mistake. We accept digestive discomfort as a normal part of aging, when it might actually be our food making us sick. Think about how often mushrooms appear in your leftover meals. That mushroom soup you made and are reheating for lunch? Those sautéed mushrooms from last night's dinner that you're adding to today's omelet? Even pizza with mushroom toppings that you're warming up in the microwave? Each time, you're potentially creating these problematic protein compounds. The situation becomes even more complicated if you have any existing digestive issues, which many seniors do. If you're dealing with acid reflux, taking proton pump inhibitors, or managing irritable bowel syndrome, your digestive system is already sensitive. The altered proteins from reheated mushrooms can trigger flare-ups of these conditions, causing symptoms that might last for days. Dorothy also discovered that certain types of mushrooms are worse than others when reheated. Button mushrooms, portobello, and shiitake, the types we most commonly cook with, have higher protein concentrations that create more problematic compounds when reheated. The creamy sauces and dairy products often paired with mushrooms can make the situation even worse, as they can mask the warning signs of spoilage while creating an environment where harmful bacteria can thrive. What made Dorothy's story particularly concerning to me was that she'd been a healthy eater her whole life. She chose mushrooms specifically because they're supposed to be good for seniors. They're low in calories, high in nutrients, and easy to digest when fresh. She never imagined that her healthy choice could become harmful simply by reheating it the next day. Solution number 1. Safe rice handling for seniors. Now that you know the dangers of reheating rice, let me share the safe alternatives that will let you continue enjoying this versatile grain without putting your health at risk. After Margaret's frightening experience, she worked with her doctor and a nutritionist to develop a rice routine that's both safe and practical for her lifestyle. The most important rule Margaret learned is the 1-hour rule. When you finish cooking rice, you need to cool it down and get it into the refrigerator within 1 hour. Don't let it sit on the counter while you do dishes or watch TV. Those Bacillus cereus spores I mentioned earlier start multiplying rapidly at room temperature, and every minute counts. Here's Margaret's new system. She immediately transfers any leftover rice to shallow containers, no more than 2 inches deep. This helps it cool faster and more evenly. She then puts it directly into the refrigerator, even if it's still warm. Your refrigerator can handle the extra heat, and the rapid cooling prevents those dangerous bacteria from multiplying. But here's the key change that transformed Margaret's approach. She now treats refrigerated rice like fresh produce with a very short shelf life. She only keeps cooked rice in the refrigerator for a maximum of 24 hours, not the 3 to 5 days that many food safety guides suggest for younger adults. Your aging immune system needs this extra margin of safety. When Margaret wants to enjoy leftover rice, she's discovered much safer reheating methods than the microwave. Her favorite technique is the stovetop method. She adds a tablespoon of low-sodium chicken broth or water to a small saucepan, adds the cold rice, and heats it gently over medium-low heat, stirring constantly. This ensures even heating throughout and actually improves the flavor and texture. Another method Margaret loves is steaming. She places the rice in a steamer basket over boiling water for about 5 minutes. This reheats the rice evenly while adding moisture that makes it taste freshly cooked. The steam heat also reaches a higher, more consistent temperature than microwave heating, which helps ensure any lingering bacteria are eliminated. For those days when you want the convenience of rice without the leftover concerns, Margaret has embraced what she calls portion cooking. Instead of making a big batch, she now cooks exactly what she needs for one meal. She uses a small saucepan or even a rice cooker with a timer function that automatically switches to warm mode when the rice is done. Margaret also discovered that some types of rice are safer than others for seniors. Brown rice, while more nutritious, actually carries higher risks when reheated because its higher protein content creates more opportunities for bacterial growth. She now focuses on white jasmine or basmati rice, which have simpler structures and lower protein content. If you love the convenience of having rice ready to go, Margaret found a great alternative. She prepares rice portions in ice cube trays when it's fresh and hot, then freezes them immediately. These frozen rice cubes can be added directly to soups or stir-fries, or thawed and eaten cold in salads. Freezing stops bacterial growth completely and eliminates the reheating dangers. For seniors who meal prep, Margaret's nutritionist suggested the fresh daily approach. Instead of cooking rice in big batches, consider cooking other grains like quinoa or farro that are safer to reheat. Or simply embrace quick cooking options like instant brown rice that can be prepared fresh in just 10 minutes. Solution number 2. Fresh green alternatives. After Robert's scary experience with reheated spinach, he completely transformed his approach to eating leafy greens and discovered that fresh is not only safer, but actually more enjoyable and nutritious. Let me share the system he developed that keeps him healthy while still getting all the benefits these wonderful vegetables offer. Robert's first major change was adopting what he calls the same-day rule for leafy greens. Any spinach, lettuce, arugula, or other leafy vegetables get eaten fresh on the day they're prepared, or they get composted. No exceptions. This might sound wasteful at first, but Robert found that buying smaller quantities more frequently actually reduced his food waste because he wasn't throwing away wilted leftovers. His new shopping strategy focuses on purchasing just what he needs for 2 to 3 days maximum. Instead of buying those large containers of spring mix that used to go bad before he could finish them, Robert now buys smaller portions from the salad bar at his grocery store, or he purchases loose leafy greens and takes just what he needs for immediate use. When Robert does want warm leafy greens, he's discovered the beauty of gentle same-day cooking methods. He lightly steams fresh spinach for just 2 to 3 minutes until it's wilted but still bright green. This preserves the beneficial nitrates while avoiding the dangerous conversion that happens during reheating. The key is cooking only what you'll eat immediately and never saving cooked greens for later. Robert's nutritionist introduced him to an amazing alternative that's become his favorite: frozen leafy greens. Here's something most people don't know. Frozen spinach, kale, and other greens are actually safer for seniors than fresh ones when it comes to avoiding that nitrate conversion problem. The freezing process locks the vegetables in their safe state, and you can cook them directly from frozen without the risks associated with reheating. His go-to method now is what he calls flash cooking from frozen. He takes a portion of frozen spinach, adds it directly to a hot pan with a tiny bit of olive oil and garlic, and cooks it for just 3 to 4 minutes. It's ready to eat immediately, tastes delicious, and eliminates all the reheating dangers. Plus, frozen greens are often more affordable and always available. Regardless of season, for his beloved salads, Robert developed a mini prep system. Instead of making a large salad and trying to save leftovers, he washes and prepares greens in small batches that he can use within a few hours. He keeps a large container of washed, dried greens in his refrigerator, but only dresses and adds toppings to the portion he's eating right then. Robert also discovered the joy of microgreens and sprouts, which pack even more nutrition than full-grown leafy greens and are perfect for seniors because they're meant to be eaten fresh and raw. He grows his own sprouts on his kitchen counter. It takes just 3 to 5 days and gives him a constant supply of fresh, safe greens. One of Robert's smartest discoveries was learning to incorporate leafy greens into hot dishes at the very end of cooking, rather than reheating pre-cooked greens. He adds fresh spinach to soups during the last minute of cooking, wilts fresh arugula into hot pasta, or stirs fresh greens into warm grain bowls just before serving. This way, the greens get warmed through without the dangerous chemical changes that come from reheating. For meal planning, Robert now focuses on other vegetables that are safe to reheat, like root vegetables, bell peppers, and zucchini. for his make-ahead meals, and he saves leafy greens for fresh preparations. This simple change has eliminated his digestive issues while actually increasing the variety and nutrition in his diet. Solution number 3, egg safety protocol. After Helen's painful experience with that reheated egg casserole, she completely revolutionized her approach to cooking with eggs and discovered that fresh egg preparation can actually be quicker and more satisfying than reheating leftovers. Let me share the practical system she developed that keeps her safe while still enjoying this nutritious protein source. Helen's golden rule is simple. Cook eggs fresh daily and never store cooked eggs for reheating. This might sound like more work, but Helen found that preparing eggs fresh actually takes less time than she was spending reheating and worrying about food safety. Her new motto is, 5 minutes fresh is better than 2 minutes risky. For busy mornings, Helen discovered what she calls speed cooking techniques. She can now make perfect scrambled eggs in just 3 minutes using a non-stick pan over medium-low heat. The key is using a small pan, just right for 1 or 2 eggs, and keeping the heat moderate so the eggs cook evenly without becoming rubbery. She adds a tablespoon of milk or water to make them creamy and cooks them slowly, stirring constantly. Helen's favorite quick breakfast became the 2-minute omelet. She beats 2 eggs with a fork, pours them into a hot, buttered small pan, and as soon as the bottom sets, she adds any fillings, cheese, herbs, or pre-cooked vegetables, folds it in half, and slides it onto her plate. Total time, under 5 minutes, and infinitely safer than reheated eggs. For those special occasions when Helen wants something more elaborate, she developed make-ahead strategies that don't involve storing cooked eggs. She preps all her ingredients the night before, dices vegetables, grates cheese, chops herbs, and stores them in small containers. In the morning, she can create a restaurant-quality breakfast in just minutes using fresh eggs with pre-prepped ingredients. Helen also discovered the safety and convenience of pasteurized liquid eggs, which come in cartons and are perfect for seniors. These eggs have been heat-treated to eliminate bacteria while still raw, making them safer for our more vulnerable immune systems. They cook exactly like fresh eggs, but with added peace of mind, and they're perfect for seniors who might have dexterity issues with cracking shells. One of Helen's smartest discoveries was egg powder for baking applications. When she wants to make muffins, pancakes, or quick breads, she now uses pasteurized egg powder instead of fresh eggs. This eliminates any concerns about storing baked goods with eggs, and the powder has a long shelf life. Her baked goods taste just as good, but she can safely store them for several days without worry. For protein needs throughout the day, Helen learned to think beyond traditional egg dishes. She discovered that hard-boiled eggs, when prepared fresh and eaten immediately, are perfectly safe. She now makes 1 or 2 hard-boiled eggs at a time using a simple technique. Place eggs in cold water, bring to a boil, then turn off heat and let sit for 12 minutes. This gives her a perfect protein snack that she eats right away. Helen also embraced what her nutritionist calls egg alternatives for certain dishes. For egg salad, she now uses mashed avocado with a touch of mustard and lemon juice. It has a similar creamy texture, but none of the reheating risks. For breakfast burritos, she discovered that ricotta cheese mixed with herbs provides protein and creaminess without the egg dangers. The most important lesson Helen learned was planning. Instead of making large batches of egg dishes to reheat later, she now thinks in terms of single servings prepared fresh. This approach has not only eliminated her digestive issues, but has actually improved her nutrition because fresh eggs retain more vitamins and minerals than reheated ones. Solution number 4. Processed meat alternatives. Frank's emergency room visit was the wake-up call he needed to completely rethink his relationship with processed meats. But instead of giving up convenience and flavor, he discovered alternatives that are actually more delicious, more nutritious, and infinitely safer for seniors like us. Let me share the system Frank developed that transformed his meals and his health. Frank's first major change was switching from reheating processed meats to preparing fresh proteins in small batches. He invested in a small countertop grill, nothing fancy, just a simple electric version that lets him quickly cook a single chicken breast or small piece of fish in about 8 minutes. He seasons it while it's cooking and eats it immediately, getting fresh protein without any of the risks associated with processed meats. For the convenience factor he missed from deli meats, Frank learned to cook proteins in advance but store them safely. Every Sunday, he now roasts a small chicken breast or piece of lean pork in his toaster oven. Once it's completely cooled, he slices it thin and stores it in the refrigerator for cold sandwiches only, never for reheating. This gives him the convenience of grab-and-go protein for up to 3 days without the nitrates and reheating dangers of processed deli meats. Frank's nutritionist introduced him to what she calls natural preservation techniques that our grandparents used before processed foods became common. He learned to season fresh meats with salt, herbs, and spices that naturally inhibit bacterial growth. Things like rosemary, thyme, garlic, and black pepper. These seasonings not only make the meat safer, but also more flavorful than bland processed alternatives. One of Frank's biggest discoveries was learning to read labels properly. When he occasionally does buy processed meats, he now looks for products labeled uncured or no nitrates added. These products use natural preservatives like celery powder instead of synthetic nitrates. While they're still not ideal for reheating, they're much safer than conventional processed meats if eaten cold. For hot dishes where Frank used to add reheated deli meat, he developed quick cooking alternatives. Instead of adding leftover ham to scrambled eggs, he now keeps small portions of cooked, crumbled bacon in his freezer. A tiny amount adds the smoky flavor he craves without the risks. For soups and casseroles, he learned to add fresh protein during the cooking process rather than stirring in pre-cooked processed meats. Frank also embraced plant-based proteins that give him the satisfying, savory flavors he missed from processed meats. He discovered that mushrooms, when seasoned and cooked properly, provide a meaty texture and umami flavor that satisfies his cravings. Seasoned lentils, black beans, and even nuts can provide protein and satisfaction without any of the processing dangers. His shopping strategy completely changed too. Instead of buying large packages of deli meat that would sit in his refrigerator for a week, Frank now shops more frequently for smaller amounts of fresh protein. He might buy just 2 chicken thighs or a small piece of fish, enough for a couple of meals without leftovers that tempt him to reheat processed foods. Frank's doctor was thrilled with another change he made, incorporating more omega-3 rich proteins like canned salmon and sardines into his diet. These come in single-serving portions, require no cooking, and provide heart-healthy fats that are especially beneficial for seniors managing cardiovascular health. Frank makes salmon salad sandwiches or add sardines to pasta, getting convenient protein without any processing risks. For those times when Frank wants the convenience of processed meats, he learned about freeze-dried and dehydrated options that don't contain nitrates. These products can be rehydrated safely and provide protein and flavor without the chemical preservatives that become dangerous when reheated. The most important lesson Frank learned was portion control and timing. Instead of buying processed meats with the intention of using them throughout the week, he now plans his protein needs day by day and prepares only what he'll eat immediately. Solution number 5, mushroom consumption guidelines. After Dorothy's difficult night following her reheated mushroom risotto, she was determined not to give up on mushrooms entirely. They're too nutritious and delicious to eliminate completely. Instead, she worked with a nutritionist who specializes in senior health to develop safe ways to continue enjoying these wonderful fungi without the digestive distress. Her new approach has actually enhanced her cooking and improved her overall health. Dorothy's fundamental rule became cook and consume immediately. She now treats mushrooms like fresh herbs, something to be used the same day they're prepared, never saved for later. This shift in thinking transformed her cooking from batch preparation to what she calls mindful single-serving meals that are actually more satisfying and flavorful than her old reheated leftovers. For her beloved mushroom dishes, Dorothy learned to scale down her recipes dramatically. Instead of making a large pot of mushroom risotto to eat throughout the week, she now makes exactly 1 serving at a time. She uses a small saucepan and reduces all ingredients proportionally. Surprisingly, this individual portion approach takes only slightly longer than reheating and produces much better texture and flavor. Dorothy discovered that certain cooking methods are safer and more suitable for seniors than others. She now favors quick sautéing over long, slow cooking methods. She heats a small amount of olive oil in a pan, adds sliced mushrooms, and cooks them for just 3 to 4 minutes until they're tender but not overcooked. This preserves their protein structure and makes them easier for her digestive system to handle. Her nutritionist taught her about mushroom preparation techniques that make them more senior-friendly. Dorothy now removes the stems from mushrooms like shiitake and portobello, which contain higher concentrations of the proteins that become problematic when reheated. She also learned to slice mushrooms thinner than she used to, which helps them cook more evenly and reduces the risk of tough, indigestible pieces. For her meal planning, Dorothy developed what she calls the fresh ingredient prepared base approach. She prepares components like rice, pasta, or grain bases in advance and stores them safely, but she adds fresh mushrooms only at serving time. For example, she might cook quinoa on Sunday and store it safely in the refrigerator. Then each day, she quickly sautés fresh mushrooms and combines them with a portion of the pre-cooked grain. Dorothy also embraced dried mushrooms as a safer alternative for adding mushroom flavor to dishes she wants to prepare in advance. Dried shiitake, porcini, or mixed mushroom blends can be ground into powder and used as seasoning, or rehydrated in small amounts just before serving. The drying process changes the protein structure in ways that make them safer for seniors to consume in reheated dishes. One of Dorothy's most successful strategies was learning to preserve mushrooms safely for future use. Instead of cooking large batches and reheating them, she now blanches fresh mushrooms for just 1 minute in boiling water, then freezes them in single-serving portions. These frozen mushrooms can be added directly to soups, stews or stir-fries, without the risks associated with reheating cooked mushrooms. For convenience, Dorothy discovered pre-sliced mushrooms at her grocery store's salad bar. She can buy exactly the amount she needs for one meal, eliminating waste and the temptation to save leftovers. This approach costs slightly more per pound, but saves money overall because she's not throwing away spoiled mushrooms or risking her health with reheated leftovers. Dorothy's cooking routine now includes what she calls mushroom prep time, 5 minutes each evening when she cleans and slices mushrooms for the next day's meals. This small investment of time means she can quickly add fresh mushrooms to breakfast eggs, lunch salads, or dinner dishes without any advanced cooking or dangerous reheating. The most important lesson Dorothy learned was listening to her body's changing needs. She realized that as we age, our digestive systems become more sensitive to foods that were once easy to handle. By respecting these changes and adapting her cooking methods, she's actually discovered new flavors and textures in mushrooms that she never noticed when she was reheating the same dish repeatedly. Margaret, Robert, Helen, Frank, and Dorothy. 5 people just like you who discovered that small changes in their kitchen habits transformed their health and peace of mind. Each of them thought they were being careful, following the same food practices they'd used for decades. But our bodies change, and what worked at 40 or 50 can become dangerous at 60, 70, and beyond. The truth is, you don't have to choose between convenience and safety. You don't have to give up delicious meals or spend hours in the kitchen. What you need is the right information and simple strategies that work with your aging body, not against it. Start with just one change. Pick the food that surprised you most from today's discussion. Maybe it's that leftover rice sitting in your refrigerator right now, or those deli meats you were planning to heat up for lunch tomorrow. Make that one change this week. Your immune system is working harder than it used to. Your digestive system needs more support. The medications you're taking may be creating vulnerabilities you never knew existed, but armed with this knowledge, you can protect yourself while still enjoying the foods you love. Remember Margaret's words. I wish someone had told me this before I ended up in the emergency room. These aren't complicated changes. They're simple switches that could save your life. Don't wait for your own emergency room visit to take action. Your health, your independence, and your quality of life are worth these small adjustments. Start today, because you deserve to enjoy every meal without fear.